Hey there YouTube, I just got back from my second showing of The Hobbit, An Unexpected Journey. The first time I saw it in 48 frames per second 3D, and the second time I saw it in regular 24 frames per second, no 3D, total old school movie experience. And my first thoughts about this movie are that I really liked it. It did a lot of things great, it was a lot of fun, but the unfortunate thing is I didn't love this movie. It was missing something that really made the Lord of the Rings work, and I hate to draw comparisons between it and Lord of the Rings because the source material and the tone of it and everything is so completely different, but it's going back to that same world, and I didn't get the same feeling that Lord of the Rings gave me. However, if you are going to see this movie, which you should really do, it is by no means a waste of time. You should see it in regular 24 frames per second, no 3D, because that's where you're going to get your best experience. I didn't realize it really until I just watched it here in the regular 24 frames, but the 3D experience, whether it was the high frame rate, the 3D itself, or even just the glasses, really took me out of the experience and really detracted from an overall very good film. And part of me really wants to say that this was a great film, but unfortunately it's not. I don't really feel it if I say it's great. It was really good. It was actually the second time I've seen it now. It's better than I thought it was going to be, but it wasn't great. It wasn't terrific. It did a lot of things right though. It was very true to the source material, even though it added some bits and pieces that weren't really necessary. All the bits with Radagast the Brown don't feel like they're needed. It feels like it's filler, that it's just something to add to the runtime. Some scenes in particular that stand out to me are when Bilbo and Gandalf first meet. That's straight out of the book and it's done very well. I absolutely loved it. And I really liked the whole introduction of the dwarves where Bilbo first meets them all and they all show up at his house. That I really enjoyed. It goes on for quite a bit, and for me I didn't really find that it dragged on. It takes a lot of time to go through, but it always felt fun and I really enjoyed it. As well as the Riddles in the Dark scene where we have the return of Gollum. That was tremendous. I had a bit of a different vision in my head of where they were going to go. I myself wasn't too sure of what I wanted to see for it, but what they did was great. Martin Freeman nailed Bilbo's lines and did a really good job portraying him in that scene, and Andy Serkis's Gollum, there's not really anything that can be said about him that hasn't been said already. He is the motion capture master. You put him in a motion capture suit and get him back to his character, especially the character of Gollum, he's going to do a terrific job, and he definitely didn't disappoint this time around. A lot of the other cast was really good as well. Nobody was really standout except for Richard Armitage as Thorin Oakenshield. And then of course Sir Ian McKellen as Gandalf. He did terrific, as anyone would have expected he'd do, because he is Gandalf. There is no ands, ifs or buts about it. Ian McKellen is Gandalf and he brings that weight to the role and he does a great job. And the other newcomer, Martin Freeman, his scene with Gollum there, Riddles in the Dark, wasn't the only scene. He was tremendous throughout. He did a terrific job as Bilbo. I really connected with his character. He gave him a lightheartedness, a fun aspect to him, and you could really see the adventurous hobbit inside. And he also did a really good job of giving me the opportunity to see that, yeah, this is the Bilbo that grows up to become Ian Holm. Now, some of the things I didn't like about the film are, one is the opening scene there with Frodo. That drags on a bit, and Frodo really shows up for no reason other than for them to have Elijah Wood show up. As well as I mentioned, the scenes with Radagast the Brown, not the best. They do feel like filler. There's a few other parts in the movie that feel like they're filler and don't really feel like they belong. And then one of the biggest things that I didn't like about this film was how much CGI. Of course there was going to be a lot of CGI in the film, but one thing that made Peter Jackson's original Lord of the Rings trilogy so good was that they tried to do as much as they could without CGI, and CGI was a last resort. Whereas, unfortunately with this one, they've gone a bit of the route of George Lucas, and there's a lot more CGI to the creatures. Now with a film like this, there's always going to be a lot of creature CGI, but unfortunately with all the orcs, they're all CGI. Very few of them are actually prosthetics and done like the original trilogy's done. And that really detracts, I find, from the weight those characters bring to the screen and from the overall scariness that you felt when you first saw them in the original trilogy, and they looked real. They looked video gamey in this. The biggest drawback I found of this film is the musical score. Lord of the Rings was perfect. It nailed everything right down to the score, and that's what really tied everything together. Unfortunately, The Hobbit comes close in this regard, but it's still, the music just doesn't have that emotional impact, doesn't pull you in like it should, and ultimately that ends up hurting the film quite a bit. So my final thoughts on the film are, it's a really good film. I want to say I loved it, but unfortunately there's just too many little things missing from it to make it that terrific experience and to really pull everything together like The Lord of the Rings was. But it's still a really good film. Again, I want to say great, but it's not quite there. It's really, really close. It's definitely something you should spend your money to go and see. I would highly recommend against seeing it in 48 frames per second in 3D, as I commend Peter Jackson for trying to do something different and pushing the boundaries of cinema, but it detracts from the overall experience and it reminds you that you're watching a film. But there's a lot of really great parts of the film. It stays very true to the source material for the most part, and the iconic scenes that are really important to the book are there, so it's still definitely worth your money to pay full price to go and see. I can't really give it a starred rating because I know if I do, it's going to be a biased one. I can't give it a legitimate one. The only thing I can say is spend your money, go see this movie. It won't be the same experience as Lord of the Rings. You won't get that same feel from it, but it will still be fun as long as you manage your expectations for it and you don't see it in 3D. That's the biggest thing about this film. Don't see it in 3D and it's way better. Let me know your thoughts on The Hobbit, if you liked it, hated it, if it should die in a hole on the ground. Share them in the comment section down below. Please like this review, subscribe to my channel for more videos like this, and I will see you guys next time.